Hello travelers, it's Bre, your favorite tour guide, and today we are finally building a penguin enclosure in honor of the Lord and Legend, King Baby Pesto. This is episode 3 of my Viking Village Zoo build, and if you could share this video with a friend, that would be amazing. I'm trying to reach 100 followers by Christmas, so buckle up and let's go. To begin, I knew that I wanted to do a Viking longhouse inspired viewing area for the guests to see the animals from. In order to accomplish that, I took a pre-made building and deleted the walls and some of the flooring to make it more open and spacious. I like the idea of including a glass floor because these are going to be aquatic animals and guests can see them playing with toys underneath. I grabbed some of the extra mini walls to kind of close off the gap without it being too dramatic. I then copied all of that and squished it together. I loved the intricate wall detail on the sides and thought that it would make a really cute railing, so I just kept those. Inside, I took out the middle beams and edited the doorways. One of the more kind of challenging parts of this build was to fit it into our pre-made reindeer enclosure from last episode. I put the pathways about where I thought the building should go and then placed the building on top. One of the cool features on Planet Zoo is that the standard wall size also matches up with the smallest path size, so you can make your pathways and buildings line up. I used the align to grid feature to fill in the rest of the pathway, which made the floor walkable for the guests. Next, I dug out a hole underneath the log house and added some rocks to separate the two enclosures that are going in today. As it is with this series, terrain time is fact time. So our very first fun penguin fact is that king penguins are different than emperor penguins. King penguins are really close relatives to emperor penguins, but they stand about 1 foot shorter, little short kings. Another difference is that king penguins have orange colored feathers around their ears and neck, while emperor penguins are more yellow. One of the most distinguishing differences between these two are their babies. An emperor penguin has a baby that is really cute and fluffy with kind of a gray body and a white and black head, while a king penguin's baby, which is what Baby Pesto is rather large and can have very thick dark brown feathers. This difference is actually due to where they live. King penguins live on little islands surrounding Antarctica, but not actually on Antarctica. So it's a little bit warmer than the outer edges of the continent where emperor penguins live. King penguin babies grow up on rocks and sandy beaches and need to be brown in order to hide from predators, where emperor penguins actually live on Antarctica and their babies need to be white or gray to blend in with the snow. Right now, I'm attempting to make a mountain that's going to have a waterfall that flows into both enclosures. Planet Zoo kind of recently added these bubble viewers that allow guests an inside look of the enclosures. The Arctic pack comes with this very cute little snowy igloo, and I thought that might be a fun way for guests to see the penguins up close. I added in some more snowy rocks to even out the base and cover what was left of the entrance, and then deleted the flag on top and replaced it with a penguin. In order to make the entrance stand out in the dark, I added a light with a warm glow. So today, our king penguins will be living right next door to the very squishy, very adorable gray seal. These animals actually live in the very far north polar regions, so almost as far away from king penguins as you could possibly get, but both animals share a love for the cold weather, which is why I'm placing them together. Gray seal pups are born completely white, and as they mature, their coats will turn pretty patterns of marbled gray, black, and brown. They can grow up to 10 feet long and can weigh around 8 to 900 pounds, and their babies can grow as much as 3 pounds a day. Gray seals can hold their breath underwater for 30 minutes and dive down over 1,000 feet. The terrain in this exhibit went through a few different models as I attempted to get everything correct and working with the underwater viewing area. When creating an underwater viewing area such as this one in Planet Zoo, it's really important to keep the pathways close to the walls for a more realistic look. Using barriers instead of glass windows ensures that the animals will not escape, and it still gives guests a great view. Most of the barriers have an option to add in a window, but I wanted to use the full glass walls to make it really immersive. I know this is already kind of a speed build, but getting everything lined up and good did take a little bit longer than I was expecting, so let's just fast forward some more. With any of the glass barriers, you do have the option to make it double-sided so the guests and the animals can see each other, or just single-sided so that the animals cannot see the guests. Sometimes it's nice to give them a little bit more privacy and can help the animals feel less nervous. I chose to go with the double-sided glass for now, but if the animals become stressed out or anxious, it's a pretty simple change. I wanted to make sure that the roof of this viewing area was accessible to the seals and decided to disguise it as kind of a little iceberg. I will confess, I do not know if this works, so we'll have to double check that in next week's episode. In order to achieve this kind of glaciery look, I just combined some ice, rocks, and snow while alternating size and rotation. I really like how the textures kind of blended together and made it look a tiny bit more natural. To give the animals the best chance of actually being able to use this area, I placed some of the rocks halfway into the water. This way the seals will hopefully be able to swim up and jump on top of it. In the wild, gray seals spend the vast majority of their time lounging about and soaking up the sun, so hopefully we can achieve that here. When it's time for breeding season or when the females are giving birth, they can completely take over coastlines with their huge social colonies. Something that's pretty cool about gray seals and that makes me really happy is that they are currently listed under least concerned and appear to be thriving. They are mostly threatened by human hunting and accidental catching. As their main food source is fish and crustaceans, they will sometimes find themselves in fishing nets, which is typically not a fun time. Moving now towards the center of the two enclosures, it's a time to build up the barrier that will separate them. I chose to go with the concrete barrier as it looks the most rock colored. Neither of the animals going into these enclosures are famous for their climbing abilities, so I figured using a null barrier to block off the mountain would be effective without ruining visual appeal. In order to make the concrete wall look a little less terrible, I covered it completely with rocks. This should not only keep the animals in, but it's also prettier to look at and a little bit more realistic. Just to be sure that nobody would escape, I made the terrain a bit steeper all the way around the mountain. Now we are to the most challenging part of this entire build, which was actually connecting everything back to the reindeer enclosure. I used the null barrier to trace out the outside of the building before switching back to our standard wooden fence. After that, it was just a fair amount of adjustings and tweaking with the railings in order to get it all set. And I will leave you to enjoy this visual masterpiece of endless adjustments while I tell you another fun penguin fact. A large group of penguins can go by many names. They are often referred to simply as a colony or a huddle, but a few of my favorites is when they're referenced as a waddle while migrating and a raft when in the water. Picture this. You're with your favorite travel buddy and somehow you end up shipwrecked. After drifting aimlessly for hours, they look out and be like, "Oh look, it's a raft!" And instead of a boat coming to save your life, it's just a group of penguins. Speaking about life, king penguins have an impressively long lifespan. In the wild, they can live up to 26 years and can live as much as 40 years in captivity. According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, or the IUCN, that makes the conservation status list, also rates king penguins as least concern. In the wild, they are mostly threatened by overfishing and natural predators such as seabirds, seals, and killer whales. But like I said before, these two neighbors are not neighbors on the globe. King penguins are mostly hunted down by leopard seals, fur seals, and South American sea lions, but not the gray seal. In ancient times, gray seals definitely faced Vikings, as their populations are mostly on the northwestern coast of Norway, Sweden, Ireland, and the United Kingdom. Let's add some lights to the interior of the viewing area to make it more cozy. I chose these super festive little Christmas stars, and I'm going to make them warm to kind of match the Viking vibes. The last step here was to make the enclosures actually enclosures. Now for a very fun and complicated section of the tour, I attempted to make a waterfall. I confess that I'm not very good at this skill, and the one that I made for the Mudang enclosure was definitely better. So allow me to distract you with some penguin facts specifically about Pesto. You will be pleased to learn that this chunky boy has his own Wikipedia page, and according to this, he hatched on January 30th at the Sea Life Aquarium in Melbourne, Australia. He began taking social media by storm due to his impressive size, and at his gender reveal party in September, already weighed a whopping 46 pounds. A fun fact about his upbringing is that he was raised by foster parents Tango and Hudson because they were unsuccessful in hatching their own egg. The Melbourne Sea Life Aquarium has their own page dedicated solely to Pesto. A popular question featured on this page is, does Pesto have any siblings or friends? And I'm happy to report that his best friend is his dad Hudson, and he also enjoys spending quality time with his auntie and some of the other young birds that share his enclosure. This absolute king has his own merch, including but not limited to t-shirts, tote bags, and plushies. If you travel to Sea Life Melbourne as part of the Penguin Encounter, you might get the chance to meet Pesto in person. He has entered his fledgling era and has started to molt, so the super fluffy brown boy that we have all come to know and love is molting away, but turning into a fabulous tuxedo. If you are interested in showing your support for Baby Pesto, consider purchasing some of his merch, but also feel free to donate to Sea Life Melbourne directly or the Sea Life Trust to help fund conservation efforts all over the world. And the links for all of those will be in my description below. Now for my favorite part of the tour, it's enrichment decor time. I definitely wanted to feature this really cool pre-made penguin house, and I wanted this enclosure to be really fun for both the guests and the penguins. So I placed a little submarine toy underneath the glass floor, so hopefully the guests can watch them interact with that. I made sure to add in a good mix of food enrichment and toys, as well as their appropriate feeding stations, so hopefully once they move in, the penguins will be happy. I do know that penguins do not love grass. It's not part of their natural habitat. I got rid of most of the grass and added in some rocks and some sand and some dirt and some snow. Coolers on the mountain ensured that the snow would stick and not melt away. This part of the tour is a little bit confusing, but I'm getting warnings in regards to the reindeer enclosure. Planet Zoo doesn't love it when you put two enclosures touching each other with a shared zookeeper door. In order to fix that, I had to fence off this entire area and add in some guest gates, so hopefully the game will be happy. I did make the reindeer enclosure just a little bit smaller because of that, but I don't think they will complain. Once the guest gates were placed and the fence was raised to the correct height, I decided to add in the glass so we can see through it. And I tidied up a little bit with some landscape rearranging. And now it's finally time to bring in the penguins. Everyone meet Hannah, who is currently not a fan of the lack of sand. Luckily, that's a quick fix. That should make her much happier. With that out of the way, it's time to add in just a few plants, but not that many. This is still kind of Antarctica after all. With that, our penguin enclosure is done, and it's time to return to the gray seals. When I first put the gray seals in this enclosure, there was some kind of weird glitch thing happening where it could not read that the land area was land or that the water was water. The game was telling me that I had placed 3 very large seals inside of a 20 by 20 foot enclosure. There was a ton of trial and error, and I truly do not know what happened, but it did eventually work and turn green. I filled in the terrain appropriately to match the gray seals. They preferred a little bit more coverage than the penguins, and I decided to fill that in almost exclusively underwater. This not only will make the seals happy, but is more visually appealing to the guests. As a final step, I added another information sign and some furniture, including a heater, to the underwater viewing area. By changing the watercolor, it not only made it more blue, but also more clear. And I'm sad to say that this concludes today's tour. Thank you so much for joining me on this great seal pesto infusion. If you did enjoy the tour, be sure to tip your tour guide by liking, subscribing, and sharing. I would love to get to 100 subscribers by Christmas. Thanks again, and I will see you next week. Okay, bye!